guitar Gibson evolved into the Les Paul. At the beginning of the 40s, both musician and inventor Orville Wallace Appleton, with his App guitar, and Les Paul, with his Epiphone log, had already presented some solid-body electric guitar projects to Gibson. However, their efforts failed to capture the interest of the Kalamazoo Company. That changed after Fender unveiled its first solid body, the Esquire, at the 1950 NAMM show. Suddenly, almost all the Western swing guitarists became interested in Leo Fender's new instrument. While some solid-body electric guitars had been built before, such as the one made by Paul Bigsby for Merle Travis and the small Slingerland for '01, it was Leo who initiated large-scale production. After the success of the Fender Esquire, Ted McCarty and Maurice Berlin decided it was time to design a solid-body guitar to compete with Leo's company. They assigned a team led by Larry Allers, likely the most significant figure in the development of the Les Paul, under the supervision of Clarence Hebna, Gibson's sales director. Although Fender constructed the bodies using flat ash boards, Gibson distinguished itself by continuing to produce guitars with carved tops, similar to those of its archtop guitars. "Look, if we're going to make a guitar, we are going to make one that will be different from anything Leo was making," Ted McCarty stated. The first experiments, carried out in 1950, involved guitars similar to the Gibson ES-125. These prototypes varied in size, featured flat tops and backs, lacked cutaways, and had unbound mahogany sunburst bodies with P90 pickups in the center. These early models were crucial for studying the tone of solid-body guitars. Initially, the models were large and heavy, prompting the testing of smaller-size guitars, referred to as Rangers. These instruments featured flat tops and only one pickup, with the name Ranger displayed on the pickguard. Conceptually, they were meant to be similar to the Les Paul Jr., but lacked cutaways and probably had a small tailpiece like that of the ES-125. The next phase involved adding a Florentine cutaway, similar to that of the ES-140, to facilitate access to the higher frets. Additionally, the mahogany body, which did not provide enough sustain, was replaced with maple, or they experimented with mixed maple and mahogany bodies. Some prototypes had wood grain running in different directions to analyze its influence on sound, and various neck inclinations were tested. A few of these instruments, made in 1950, remained unfinished, while others were finished in Cremona Sunburst or Natural. One of the 195 prototypes was carefully preserved by Ron Allers, Larry's son. The natural finish body was slightly smaller than that of previous prototypes. The scale of the instrument was 25½ inches and featured a sharp Florentine cutaway. The carved top was made from a single maple board. Although a two-piece top was later preferred for its stability, its thickness was pronounced, exposing the maple not only in the cutaway, but also on both sides of the neck. The mahogany neck featured a rosewood fretboard equipped with dot fret markers and no binding. The entire neck width extended into the body and was glued 12 to 13 centimeters to the beginning of the pickup cavity. Additionally, two screws, covered by perloid dots, further secured it to the body. A small ledge of the body extended over the neck heel, creating a very deep heel. The switch was fixed to the body using a rectangular gray plastic plate and 4 screws. Over time, the instrument underwent significant changes. Its P90 pickups were replaced with humbuckers. Various types of bridges were experimented with, and it received a sunburst finish. The guitar changed hands several times. It remained at Kalamazoo for a while, but by the end of the 1970s, it was purchased by a musician from Mill Alley, California. Its subsequent owners included Lee Michaels and, later, Warren Klein. In 1983, Scott Lentz and David Flood restored the instrument to its original finish. Les Paul's involvement. Now that the solid-body Gibson was ready, a name and a promotional strategy had to be established. For a long time, it was believed that Gibson hesitated to put its own brand on this guitar, as it was a very conservative company. However, Ted McCarty always denied this notion. In previous decades, the Gibson Nick Lucas and Roy Smeck signature models had been successful, and it was time for a new model. So we made our solid body guitar. Now we needed someone with a reputation, a player to give it some publicity, Ted declared. After compiling a list of potential candidates, the choice fell on Les Paul, who was already featured in the Gibson catalogs of 1939 and 1949. He was one of the most prominent guitarists at the time and had already been exploring solid bodies through his experiments with the log. However, Ted feared it would be challenging to convince him, as Les was playing Epiphones at that time and was friends with the owner, Anastasios Stathopoulos. Maurice Berlin asked his assistant Mark Carlucci to locate the man with the broomstick and pickups to present the project. Mark met Les in Chicago. Initially, Les thought it was a flat-top guitar, but when Mark explained that it was an instrument with a carved top, the guitarist became enthusiastic. It was then time to present the prototypes to Les. Ted McCarty personally visited the guitarist, who was in Pennsylvania recording with Mary Ford. Les played a few notes on the prototype and exclaimed, "I think we should join them." Together, they decided to name the new instrument the Les Paul model and stipulated a contract, which established that 5% of the profits would go to the musician. Les, in turn, would serve as a consultant for Gibson and agreed to play only Gibson guitars during the contract period. He was even asked to place the Gibson logo on his Epiphones before production of the new instruments had begun. Over the years, the agreement was renewed twice, totaling another 10 years. One of Les's first requests was to round the cutaway. It would knock your wrist if you weren't careful. He also desired a golden finish for a royal aura and unique appearance. Les proposed using a bridge he invented in 1945 and tested on his L12 models. The gold finish, made from bronze powder and lacquer, was similar to that on an ES-175 Custom he had ordered for a friend. Ted explained that the painting process for the top differed from the mahogany body. Maple required only a thin nitrocellulose layer, protected by 4 clear coat layers. Some Goldtops developed a green tint due to oxidation, earning them the nickname Bullion Gold. Les Paul registered his trapeze tailpiece in 1952, and it was patented in 1956. This all-in-one unit allowed height adjustment, but didn't compensate for individual strings. Tuning issues forced the strings to be wrapped under the brass nickel-coated bar. However, the new system didn't allow the muting technique and the muffled sound that Les liked so much. Both the body and neck were made of Honduras mahogany, with a subtly carved maple top. The body featured a less pronounced and more harmonious carving than its prototypes. Its thick neck, reinforced by a truss rod patented in 1920 by Ted McHugh, supported a Brazilian rosewood fretboard, which lacked the characteristic side binding in early models. The fretboard had trapezoidal nitrocellulose markers with a radius between 10" and 12. Side markers appeared black, but were actually dark red amber. The official scale was 24.75 inches, but measured slightly shorter at 24.5625 inches. The Les Paul used 2P90 model 480 single coils designed by Walt Fuller. These pickups could be controlled through 2 volume knobs, 2 tone knobs, and a Switchcraft 3-position switch, without the typical plastic ring found in later products. In May 1952, Gibson unveiled the new guitar. The guitar everyone has been waiting for and asking about is here at last. It's the new and smart-looking gold-finished Gibson Les Paul model. Solid body, electric Spanish, cutaway. The first Les Pauls were sent to dealers in June. In 1952, the instruments sent totaled 1,716. In 1953, 2,245. And in 1954 and 1955, respectively, 1,504 and 862. The list price was $210, plus $39.50 for the case.